back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today I'm going to show you guys how to make a baby Stegosaurus. Now the reason I'm doing a dinosaur is because I realized I did a raptor video over a year ago and I have not added any more dinosaurs since then. I mean, I've done prehistoric creatures, but I've not added any more dinosaurs and I can't have that. I absolutely love dinosaurs, so I gotta have them on the channel, and so far it seems like you guys really enjoyed that one particular video, so I've got to have more out there for you and for me because I like making them. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so for our Stegos pattern, basically all I did was I drew kind of a flat outline of what a Stego looks like, without the spines, of course. This is going to be the sides of the body. And then to make the inside parts of the legs, you're just going to cut the legs off of this pattern and use that to make the legs for the inside parts. And then the other pattern pieces that you're going to be needing are going to be a belly piece, a strip of fabric to go between the plates on the back, and then of course the plates themselves. Now for the belly piece of the Stego, this is actually the belly and the neck. So the very top of this pattern piece is going to be nice and thin, and then once I got to kind of the middle of it, I widened it quite a bit, and I did this so that the body of the Stego is going to round off and be kind of nice and plump. And then for the plates that go down the back, I drew 4 different pattern sizes. Because of the size of the body, we shouldn't need any more than that. The larger ones are going to be the very middle of the back, and then the smaller they go, they're going to go down the neck and then down the tail. Okay, so I'm going to go over all the fabric pieces that you're going to need for the Stego. The first thing is the main body piece. Now if you notice, this fabric is not like furry or anything, so I'm going to be using my sewing machine for it. And because I'm using the sewing machine for this, I added about 1/4 of an inch going all the way around our pattern. And then of course you're going to need your belly piece, the inside parts of the legs for all 4 legs, a strip of fabric to go down the back, and then all the plates themselves. Now for the plates, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making 4 of each size. So I have 4 different sizes and I'm making 4 of each one of those. And then I'm using a little bit of felt to make the spikes at the end of the tail. Okay, so I'm going to start on the sewing, and I think I'm going to start on all the plates that go down the back because there's like 16 of them and that's going to take a while, so I'm going to get all those sewn up first. Once I have all the plates sewn, I'm going to cut all of them loose from each other and then I'm going to flip them right side out. These I'm not going to stuff because I want them to stay kind of flat. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to sew those spines for the end of the tail as well. So I'm just going to do the same thing that I did with the plates, and I'm just going to sew around the little pattern that I drew out on the felt. And then of course I'm going to cut it out and flip it right side out. These I am going to stuff though. Okay, we're going to move on to sewing the body itself now. So I'm going to start with the legs. So I've got the inside parts of the legs pinned into place, and I'm just going to sew down the front of each leg and the back of each leg. Once I have all 4 legs sewn, I'm going to work on adding the belly to the piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the neck part of our belly piece, and I'm going to sew that using the sewing machine. Once I get to the first leg, I'm going to stop sewing with my sewing machine and I'm going to sew this part by hand. And then once I get past that, we're going to go between the 2 legs with the sewing machine, stop the sewing machine, and then hand sew the other part of the leg. And then the rest of it can be sewn by the sewing machine. I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but easier way of saying it is basically, if it's not a leg, sew it with the sewing machine. If it's a leg, use your needle and thread. Okay, so this is what the body looks like so far, and now we're going to move on to sewing the plates onto the back. So we're going to take that strip of fabric that I said was for the middle of the back, and we're going to start pinning the plates onto that where we want them. To help make everything even, I used a ruler and a pen to mark where I want all the different plates to go. So I'm going to start with one side right now so I don't have the different plates overlapping and it's a little bit less messy. So I'm going to pin all of the one side into place, and then I'm just going to sew down with my sewing machine. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So now I'm going to take this piece that has all the plates sewn onto it and I'm going to hand sew it onto the back of the Stego. So we're going to have to sew down both sides of this. Once you're done hand sewing that into place, we can now finish off the tail. So what we need to do to the tail is we need to add those spikes to the end of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pen or a pencil and I'm just going to mark where I want those spikes to be on the tail. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a hole for those spikes to go. And then we're just going to sew these into place. You're welcome to hand sew this, but I'm going to use my sewing machine. Okay, so our spikes are in place, and now we need to sew the very top of the tail closed. Now the spikes take up too much room for us to flip everything inside out and sew with the sewing machine, so I'm going to hand sew this. And that's pretty much all the sewing that you're going to need to do to make the Stegos body. So I'm going to stuff this completely so you can get a better idea of what it looks like, and then I'm going to move on to making the clay pieces. So for the Stegos clay pieces, we're going to be making the feet for it and the head. So I'm going to start with the feet first because they're super simple, and then we're going to move on to making the head. So for making the feet, like I said, it's super simple. All I have to do is I'm going to make 4 little balls of clay, and then I'm going to push that onto the counter so each one has a flat point. That's going to be the bottom of the foot. Now I'm going to take even smaller balls of clay. Each foot's going to need 4 of these, and I'm going to push them onto the front of the foot. These are going to be the toenails. And then after you like the placement of everything, you're going to use your tools to kind of straighten up your edges, add a little bit more detail to it, and then you're also going to be making kind of a ring around the very top. That way when you attach this to the foot, you kind of have like a seam placement for your fabric. So the fabric's going to kind of tuck into place, and it's going to kind of hide itself a bit more. Okay, so here are all 4 of our feet, and I'm going to put these off to the side and wait on baking them until we get the head finished. That way I don't have to run the oven twice today. So like most of my faces, the very middle of the head is going to be composed of tin foil, and then we're going to build up a nice thick layer over this with our clay. If you're curious on what type of clay I'm using, I always use Original Sculpey. So again, I'm going to completely cover this piece of tin foil in clay, and then I'm going to smooth it out and kind of roughly shape it before we add the details to it. So the first thing I think I'm going to add to my Stegos face are going to be the eyes. Now normally I like making really big eyes, but I want to try and make this look a little bit more realistic, so I'm going to make really tiny ones so that they're proportional. So I'm going to start with 2 little balls of clay, I'm going to push those in place, and then I'm going to use some small strips of clay to make the eyelids. Okay, so once I'm happy with the eyes, I'm going to move on to shaping the mouth. And basically, I'm just using my tools to kind of mark where I want the mouth itself to be. So this is basically where the lower jaw meets the upper jaw. And then I'm just drawing a nice straight line on both sides of the face, making sure to check both sides to make sure that they're both even. Now Stegos tend to have kind of like a beak-shaped mouth at the very front. Like they have a normal mouth with teeth and everything, but the very front of it has a beak at the end of it. So I'm going to make a rough example of that. I'm not going to do anything super sharp or anything. I'm going to keep all my lines nice and smooth. After I'm done with the beak, I'm going to move on to adding some indentions to the very front of the face to make the nostrils, and then I'm going to start building up clay in different parts of the face to kind of refine the shape. Mainly what I'm doing with adding the extra clay is I'm refining the cheekbone and then the bottom jaw and then a little bit more of the forehead. I want to kind of square it off a bit, but I'm still leaving everything kind of soft. Okay, so right now I'm really happy with the shape of the face and I have the major details in place. So now I'm going to start adding some texture to the face to make it look kind of like it has scales. So I'm going to start with the bottom of the head, kind of where the throat is, and I'm going to try and make it look like it's a little wrinkly. So I'm just kind of creating little lines going back and forth. None of them are straight or anything. They're all kind of broken up, kind of connecting and then disconnecting and stuff, and it creates a nice illusion of wrinkles. For the scales on the side of the face, I used one of my little pokey tools that's not super sharp or anything, it just creates nice little dot work, and then I also used the back end of a paintbrush to make larger marks. After I added the texture to the face, I decided that I wanted to add some extra large scales to the face, just to kind of change things up a bit. So I rolled out some balls of clay, I made more of an oval shape, and then I just kind of pushed them into place. Some of them are overlapping, and then some of them aren't. And then after I added all those scales, I was really happy with the face, so I'm going to move on to baking everything. So I'm going to take my face and all the feet that I made earlier, and I'm going to bake it in the oven at 275 for probably about 45 minutes. And then once all of that is done baking and is cooled to touch, we can move on to painting everything. So I'm going to start with painting the feet first because they're super easy. I'm just going to make them one solid color. I'm going to make them brown. So I'm going to paint the bottom and all the toes and everything a nice brown color to match the spines that are on the very end of the tail. So I'm just going to paint all of the feet a nice brown color, and then I'm going to set them off to the side to dry. So for the face, I've mixed up a green color to match the fabric as best I can, and I'm going to primer the face with this. Green is one of those paint colors that always tends to be kind of thinner than the others, so I'm going to probably do 2 or 3 coats. Once that's all dry, we can start adding the detail to the face. So the first bit of detail I need to add to the face is some highlight. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that green that we originally used for the face and I'm going to add some more white to it so it's a little bit lighter. And then I'm just going to add it to all the parts of the face that are kind of lifted up a bit. And then I'm going to blend everything in. Now if you notice, our green is a little bit dull right now, and one thing that really helps to kind of brighten up your green is to go over it with a thin layer of yellow. So I'm just going to go over very lightly with a little bit of yellow in areas of the face that I want to kind of brighten up. After all of that's dried, we can start painting all the other details on the face. So I'm going to start with the beak and some of the scales, and I'm going to be painting this a brown to match the feet and the other parts of the body that are brown. I'm then going to be painting the eyes a nice solid black. These eyes are kind of small, so you don't need to add a ton of detail to them unless you really want to. And then finally, the scales that are on the very top of the face, I'm going to match them to the little plates that go down the back of the stego, so I'm going to use a nice blue color. I'm going to let all my paint dry, and then I'm going to apply a thin layer of resin over everything to help protect the paint. So this is going to have to sit overnight, and then we can put everything together. Now this piece is actually super easy to put together, so there's really not too much more to do right now. It's not like I have a wire frame or anything inside of it, so we're mainly just gluing the clay pieces onto the body. So I'm going to start by taking the head of the stego and I'm just going to go around the base of it with a nice strip of glue. I'm using E6000 glue. So now I'm going to take our clay head and I'm going to push it into the hole for the head. Once you have the head in place, you're just going to smooth out the fabric and make sure everything's tucked into place, and you're going to let that dry. And then the feet are basically the same thing. You're going to take your same glue and you're going to go around the edge where the fabric's going to connect to the foot, and you're just going to push the foot into the hole for the foot. You're going to make sure your fabric is all nice and smooth and in place, and then you're going to leave everything to dry overnight. Okay guys, and that's how I did a baby stego. I'm going to have him in my Etsy shop, so if you guys are interested, go ahead and check the links down below for that. I really hope you guys enjoyed these new dinosaur videos. I'm hopefully going to get another one up soon. I know I have a few other projects to work on, but we'll see how it goes. Anyways, I know I really want to do a Carno, but if you guys have any other things you want to see me make, go ahead and leave them all in the comment section down below, and I'll see what I can do. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!